Good afternoon. I'm going to make a video today regarding the Trump uh, assassination fallout. And let's see if we can begin here. Here we go. So it starts sharing the screen. See if this is actually even working. Just 1 second. No, this is actually not working. Not even showing on here. Hold on just 1 second. Good Lord. Supposed to share the screen. Okay. So it's supposed to work now, I think. Hopefully it works. Let's see here. Yep. Okay. So this was 2 days ago. So the president had a rally in Pennsylvania, and right in the beginning of the rally, of course, as probably most of you all already know, some shooting began within 5 to 6 minutes of the rally beginning. And here's a video of that event.
And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Right, so there it is. So this was in the middle of the event, and there was a shooter. As most of you probably are aware already, shooting from the roof towards the right side of the president's view, and he got hit apparently from the ear, apparently. So the bullet grazed the skin. One person was killed, 2 people were wounded, and the 2 people were in critical condition, but now their condition has improved. So the shooter was Thomas Matthew Crooks, was the name of the shooter, and online on Twitter there was just a back and forth between Twitter accounts from the left and the right accusing their ideological opponents of what had transpired there in Pennsylvania. But what we've learned a little bit more about the shooter. He was a 20-year-old who apparently worked at a nursing home recently, and had just graduated in 2022. And one of his former classmates was interviewed by MSNBC, who claimed that he was bullied. And here's a video of that.
He was bullied almost every day.
In what way? Can you explain?
I mean, he would sit alone at lunch. I mean, he was just an outcast, and you know how kids are nowadays, so they're gonna see someone like that and they're gonna target him because they think it's funny or whatever. So it's the best way I can describe it. And it's honestly kind of sad. I don't want to say this is what provoked it, but you never know.
Yeah. You said he was a loner?
Yeah. I want to say he was a loner more because he was quiet, but he was just bullied. He was bullied so much.
And this was high school?
Yeah.
What did they, do you remember at all what they said to him or called him?
No. He was just made fun of, I guess, for the way he dressed or his appearance.
So apparently the individual was a part of a gun club, and he had worn a military attire or military type of clothing to school. And this person claimed that he was bullied at school because of his appearance. There's other testimony from the mom who also basically said the same thing, that her son had been a victim of bullying. There are others though who questioned that version, but what everyone kind of agrees on is that the individual who did the shooting was a conservative. And here's a pretty good article from the Philadelphia Inquirer. The FBI, is investigating the motive behind the gunman's actions at the rally in Pennsylvania. And in the article, they interviewed former classmates, and I think it was like a couple of classmates who were quoted on here, and they all agree that he was a conservative. He was not a liberal or left-leaning at all in his views. There was controversy on that because online that according to the media, they had discovered that he had apparently donated $15 to Act Blue, which is a Democratic Party political action committee. But then about 6-7 months later, he registered as a Republican. So both sides are kind of using that to kind of accuse the other side of what transpired here. And then here's some quotes from the article. Two other former students interviewed by the Inquirer portrayed Crooks as a quiet and engaged classmate. He was apparently a very good math student, and he would be very helpful to some of his classmates. So one graduate, Mark Sigafus, described him as nerdy, and he added, "I don't think he was as harshly bullied as some people were saying." And it goes on to say that the former student, Max Smith, remembered Crooks as an intelligent classmate with conservative leanings right there. Smith recalled participating in a mock debate in a course he took together where their teacher posed questions on government policy and had students stand on opposite sides of the classroom to signal their support or opposition. Quote, "The majority of the class were on the liberal side, but Tom, no matter what, always stood his ground on the conservative side," Smith said. "That's still the picture I have of him, just standing alone on one side while the rest of the class was on the other. It makes me wonder why he would carry out an assassination attempt on the conservative candidate," and so forth. So it's just very clear. And then there was another quote from an article, I believe in the Guardian, and I thought I had. Well, apparently not. I made a mistake. I posted the wrong link there to this post there. But there was another article from the Guardian that basically said the same thing about the shooter, and it's quoting the same people. Oh, and here's the article from the mom, basically, and this is where I highlighted the quotes there. And she apparently, according to this article here, the mom had posted a story on Instagram where she wrote, "Life sucks, 20 years old. Thomas was a great boy and did very well in school," but added that he was dealing with a lot of built up anger from bullies. "I know what my son has done, and I had no idea what built up all this anger. R.I.P. his mom." So that's the quote there from that article that I found. So I had two sources that confirmed that he had been bullied, but there are other students who claim that he was not as harshly bullied and so forth and so on. So what motivated him to do this? Well, my opinion, it's probably a suicide. Probably not even politically motivated, and I'm not going to be surprised if we find out that the person had absolutely no political motivation. They were just going through a tough time. They saw this event. There was an opportunity to do something, cause a lot of harm to others. And so that's my opinion. It's probably going to come out that this was an attempted mass shooting, because he wounded 4 people, the president and 3 others, and killed 1 person. So officially, it's not a mass shooting, I think, until it reaches a certain number, 5 or 6. So or that you kill a certain number of people. But I think that's what probably this was more, not so much of a political assassination attempt, but more of a mass shooting attempt / suicide. I think that's what's going to come out of all of this. And the other fact too, that the young man had access to a lethal firearm as well. And so what's the fallout going to be regarding this incident? Well, in my opinion, this is, a lot of people online were saying that this is definitely going to get Biden reelected, because but unfortunately, a lot of people don't know what they're talking about. So I had posted here about a day ago of past case studies where presidential candidates had been shot. So you have here Teddy Roosevelt was shot in 1912. He had been president. Oh, by the way, he had been president after he had been chosen by William McKinley to be the running mate. And then William McKinley was assassinated himself, I believe, in the 1900s. So TR took over the presidency, and TR had been a progressive. McKinley was not. So TR took over the McKinley-Roosevelt presidency, finished that term, and then went ahead and got reelected, and then did not run again, and basically left it to William Howard Taft, apparently. And then William Howard Taft ran 1 term, and historically he is considered like a progressive. But the story goes that Roosevelt was just not happy with Taft's tenure, and he thought he was not as progressive enough. So he challenged Taft to the Republican nomination and did not get it. So instead, he splintered from the Republican Party and formed the Progressive Party, or what they called the Blue Moose Party. And he ran in the 1912 election against Republican William Howard Taft. The Democratic candidate at that time was Woodrow Wilson, who won eventually, and then the Socialist Party presidential candidate Eugene Debs. So it was a 4-way race. TR came in second, but during that presidential election, there was an assassination attempt on his life. He was shot, and while he was giving a speech, and then he continued giving the speech. But so the whole history lesson. Why am I pointing this out? Well, I'm pointing this out because here was a case of a former president who was running for president, albeit on the minor party ticket. Yet the public that assassination attempt did not help him regain the White House. The other examples are, of course, Gerald Ford in 1975, one of the members of the Charlie Manson group. I think her name was Squeaky. Tried to assassinate him in 1975. Of course, in 1976, Ford loses the presidential election to Jimmy Carter. And we have the other case of the Arthur Bremer shooting presidential candidate George Wallace in the 1972 election. And that did not help Wallace. And this is a picture here of the shooter on the left-hand side, and Wallace on the right hand side. And I think Wallace at the time ran under the third party, American Independent Party. So there's public sympathy, yes, for a presidential candidate, but it does not mean that necessarily is going to help someone become president. So a lot of people are saying that, oh, Trump has it, but that's not really the case at all, because voters they don't take that in stuff like that into consideration. They'll feel sorry for you, but they're not going to vote for you because you were a victim of an assassination attempt. That's just not how American politics works. So what's the fallout? Well, if we just go back here and look at these previous posts on our page, we're gonna see something. So I just want to show you guys something of what had been the political context, what had been happening here. This was, of course, going back to the debate performance of Joe Biden and his continuous flubs. So this was July 6th, just 9 days ago. This is what the media was focusing on, him making these comments that were getting him in trouble with the media here.
I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman to serve with a black president.
So there it is. Yeah. So there was that on this 6th, July 6th, July 7th. You have him going to Pennsylvania, the state where the Trump had the shooting, and he attended a church, and he looked like kind of lost there on that occasion. He didn't look like he was all there. You have then on July 7th, same day, the House Democrats coming out saying he should drop out. Adam Smith of the Washington congressman, and then Congressman Jerry Nadler and Mark Takano, Joe Morrell of New York. They all came out and said, no, he should drop out of the race. We think we're not going to win with him. And then the senators started coming out. Mark Warner came out and said, I don't. Actually, Mark Warner tried to organize a group of senators to meet with Joe Biden and discuss him possibly stepping aside. So you had all this pressure building up against the president. July 7th here is another Senator Chris Murphy. I take the president at his word. He said that he believes that he is up to the job. I believe he can do it, but I think that this is a really critical week. I do think that the clock is ticking. So you're getting that pressure there from Senate Democrats. Then on the 8th, he says, I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again. Well, actually, I posted that on the 8th, but he had said that on the 5th. So there was another flub there that he made previous to that. Then it came out that there was a Parkinson's expert who visited the White House on 8 occasions in the previous 8 months. Then the White House, you have here 6 days ago on July 9th, the White House press secretary having to basically run back what she had previously had said. Basically, the White House press corps had caught the White House in a lie. Basically, they had said that the Parkinson's expert was not there to see the president at all, and they had to come out and clarify here. And so So here it is. So the White House clarified on Monday that Joe Biden had not seen a neurologist outside of his annual physicals following a heated exchange between the president's press secretary and journalists seeking an explanation for why a Parkinson's disease specialist visited the White House 8 times in as many months. So you were getting they were getting this they were receiving this fallout from the press about all of this information coming out regarding the president here. Then you had this 5 days ago, George Stephanopoulos saying, telling someone privately, I don't think he can serve another 4 years. And then that did not look good. Of course, he didn't really mean to say that publicly at all. And then you had again the same day, the Nancy Pelosi saying, "Hey, you should reconsider." And I think the George Clooney thing had already come out, but then they were reporting that the campaign was already receiving less money than usual, and it got to the point that they received, like, I think they lost like $90 million and so forth. So there's this here that the Hollywood donors are starting to maybe turn on Biden. This was 4 days ago that we posted this here on the political article here, and July 11th, and so forth. And then George Clooney had apparently raised like 30 million for him at an event. So there's that, and then he holds a press conference. He goes to NATO and so forth and tries to look presidential and so forth. And then he says, I'm not in this for my legacy. He's defiant and so forth. And then you had news that some of these toss-up states are now leaning Republican or likely Democrat. They're leaning Democrat, likely, and so forth. And even New York apparently is now leaning Democrat when it should be leading Democrat, apparently. And then you had the situation 3 days ago where President Biden had called Zelensky Putin. Him mixing, confusing people has just been very common. This has just been a pattern with the president about this. So the donors freeze roughly 90 million. This was back in July 12th, just 3 days ago. Okay, 3 days ago. And then you have this, the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries. He's not offering Biden his endorsement. And you have sources saying that Pelosi and Obama are working behind the scenes to slowly pressure Biden to step aside. So what looked like what was happening was that they didn't want to just push Biden just abruptly like that and embarrass him. But they're just little by little, there were just one congressman came out, and then another congressman, and then a senator, and then you have the donor, the Disney heiress, coming out saying, I don't think, he should be running, and so forth. And then, the former President Obama tweeted something. He went on Twitter, but his tweet really, if you look at his tweet, it really was not, he just basically said in his tweet that, debate performances, you win some, you lose some. But this election is still a choice between someone who lies and someone who tells the truth. Yet that tweet in and of itself was not an endorsement. It did not say that you should vote for President Biden. So that was kind of interesting. And so the Biden world is concerned that President Obama is really was working behind the scenes to slowly pressure him to step aside because they don't think they can win with him, and including Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is probably trying to support Gavin Newsom because they're related and so forth. So why am I pointing this out? Well, and then there's this just one last
to underline.
There's this video here
To underline here, just so viewers can follow what's going on behind the scenes, is the Biden campaign and many Democratic officials do believe that Barack Obama is quietly working behind the scenes to orchestrate this. I'll say one thing that this is the reality. Jonathan O'Meara, Joe Biden is deeply resentful of his treatment under not only the Obama staff, but also the way he was pushed aside for Hillary Clinton. He's deeply resentful of those trying to shove him out of the way. He's always felt like an outsider, always felt like people have looked down upon him. And that's why I said at the top of the show,
and what this reporter, I think he's a reporter from Axios. I've seen him before on some YouTube programs, Alex Thompson. The quote there is Joe Biden is deeply resentful of his treatment under not only the Obama staff, but also the way he was pushed aside for Hillary Clinton. And what they're talking about there, we had posted an article from the Washington Post in the run-up to the 2020 Democratic presidential primaries. And they pointed out that in 2016, Biden wanted to run. I think like a year before, he met with President Obama, and Obama told him, hey, I want you to talk to this staff member. When he spoke with this staff member, and the White House staff member basically told them they took out all this polling data and information and said, you should basically they made the case, the White House made the case to Joe Biden on why he should not run for president in 2016. They concluded that he would not only would he lose to Hillary Clinton, but he would come in third behind Bernie Sanders. And so the message was that they were backing Hillary Clinton. And so therefore he didn't run. And we know what happened. Trump won. And so Biden believes now that because of Obama pressuring him not to run in 2016, that's why we got Trump. That's what he believes. Okay. And then that's what this reporter here is referring to. And now you have Obama working behind the scenes to pressure him to step aside. That's why they're not doing it abruptly. They're not telling him to his face, you gotta step out. You can't win. You have too many problems. They're not doing that. They're doing it step by step, slowly, because they don't want to embarrass him. They want him to pressure him to make the decision himself. Well, and then he came late to this Hispanic caucus meeting, Democratic Hispanic caucus meeting. Came like an hour late. This was 2 days ago. Then you had the Trump shooting. And lo and behold, the entire narrative, you notice here, there's no more talk of Biden stepping aside. None. So the people who before had been coming out saying Biden should step aside, they've been silent. Okay. And that just makes sense because you can't come out right now and start talking about politics or who should be running. We shouldn't be running because we're in the middle of an attempted assassination. And so the Biden campaign, paused all the political ads that they had, and they called for unity. So one of the biggest beneficiaries of the shooting is actually Biden, because he can now run out the clock and stop, the people pressuring him to stop, to get out of the race. They have to stop now. And so the convention is going to be next month. So the more time that's elapsing, then it just favors him. And today is the Republican convention. So all the focus right now is going to be, for the next couple of days, it's going to be on Donald Trump. So you had this video today from Breaking
Now
Points.
to the political fortunes of
pointing out
President
what I just
Biden. He
mentioned right now.
appeared to be in a moment of at least crisis and shakiness after his disastrous debate performance. But Democratic insiders now
Let's see if I
believe
can
that the attempted
do a better
assassination
video here. Maybe the app itself here. Hold on just 1 second. Here we go.
Probably the most common question that I'm asked as a professor at Hillsdale is, what happened to my country?
At the same time, let's turn now to the political fortunes of President Biden. He appeared to be in a moment of at least crisis and shakiness after his disastrous debate performance. But Democratic insiders now believe that the attempted assassination on Donald Trump will cool the temperature and shift the story and attention away from those calls for Biden to step down. They now have a plan that they are standing down because of the, quote, fragile political moment. Let's take a listen to Face the Nation, where Bob Costa reports this.
I've been speaking with some top Democrats. They believe that those Democrats who have the concerns about President Biden are now standing down politically, will back President Biden because of this fragile political moment. All of that talk about the debate faded almost instantly among my top Democratic sources as this unfolded. Say it's time for the country to stick together, and that means Democrats sticking together as well. Faded almost instantly, and it appears now that the Biden campaign wants to use the current political moment actually to extenuate Biden's at least alleged political strengths. We should not forget, though, that before that assassination, this was the attempted assassination. It was the biggest story in the country, and it was a moment of genuine crisis. In fact, the very day of the attempted assassination, President Biden had an insane, interaction with members of the House Democrats. Go and put this up there on the screen, and I'll read from this entire thing. So there's this, the New Democrats. It's a coalition on Capitol Hill. They decide to have a Zoom call with President Biden. So Biden apparently showed up late to the meeting. He then referred to a congressman who has a Bronze Star, quote, somewhat unintelligibly, and then pulled back before saying more. Sources were telling reporters that they were, quote, aghast, and they took it as deeply inappropriate. That was just the first of a crazy confrontation, basically insulting a congressman with a Bronze Star who was confronting him on his ability to continue running. Let's go to the next part here to just continue to look down a little bit. This was also a crazy moment, and literally out of something like Veep. During the Biden call with the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the president said that his staff passed him a note saying, stay positive, you are sounding defensive. Biden then read the note aloud, according to the participants that were actually on the phone call. So literally.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like he pointed out that, the fallout of the Trump attempted assassination is overshadowed calls for Biden to step down, because the entire focus had been on Biden before then. So what Biden needed was actually a bigger event, kind of like a Pearl Harbor moment, right? To overshadow that, and what more than an attempted assassination, right? Had it been an assassination, because Trump was like literally inches away from being killed. Had it been that would have been worse. But now all of the focus is shifted attention from Biden to Trump. And that's what really Biden really desperately needed. Because if you saw from our posts, it was just like literally day in and day, the entire focus was on his ability or inability to assume the responsibilities of the presidency, and whether he can sustain a presidential political campaign for 4 months from now to the convention all the way to November. And a lot of people think that he can't do that. And he himself has said that he needs more rest and he needs to sleep. He needs to sleep by like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So how can you have that type of schedule when you need to be out there campaigning? This is not going to be like 2020 during COVID, where he was stuck in the basement because there was no campaign was really allowed because of the COVID crisis. And only at the very end, once the restrictions were kind of loosened, were candidates allowed to do more public events. But this year's election is not going to be like 2020. So he has to be out there crisscrossing the country because he's behind in some swing states. So a lot of people think he cannot, given it not just his age, but his mental cognitive status at the moment, that he's able to endure that rigorous campaign. So that's the concern. And so you had Sagar here from Breaking Points continues.
Let over. I will say the craziest part, though, is this reaction. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. A senior House Democrat is now saying behind the scenes, quote, "We have all resigned ourselves to a second Trump presidency." Now, keep in mind, senior House Democrat can only mean like 15, 20 people.
No, here's the thing. It's still too early. Look, the convention, it's not looking good for President Biden, honestly, but he is the incumbent president. And a lot of people don't understand the incumbency does, even with all the problems that he has, the incumbency does give the person in the White House a lot of advantages. So they really don't know. I mean, in the polling, it does look bad, but a lot of the polling is within the margin of error. Because at the moment, a lot of people really are not paying attention to what's going on. They're going to start paying attention, like really, literally several months or a month before the election. And they'll really pay more attention when you have the presidential debates. But now, here's the thing. Given the fallout from the first presidential debate that they had before the convention, which is wild, who knows? There might not be another presidential debate because Trump might say, "No, we're not going to have any debates." And because if Trump is still ahead at that point, he might just want people to remember Biden's horrible performance, his meltdown. So if they do have another debate, more people would be tuning in. And that's what happens in these elections. At the moment, they're not really paying attention to this. So we really don't know. There are other factors too, the governance, and we'll talk more about this later with Alan Lichtman's 13 Keys to the White House. But I'm gonna do a video on that, critiquing that. Some of the good, the more compelling parts that I think of his book, and the weakness of his arguments. But he does argue, incumbency is one key that the president holds. Now, for the party, he's been a drag on a ticket for House races, because when he ran in 2020, they actually lost seats in the House, and they lost more seats in the last midterm election in the House. So that's actually not a good thing. And that's the other concern that a lot of House Democrats have, that he is going to take them down with him. So that's why you're seeing a lot of Congress people. A lot of people don't understand. They get mad at these people for doing this stuff. Well, yeah, they're mad because they're afraid that he's going to take them down with him if they end up losing, because it's not looking good for them at the moment. So they're not just going to sit by and let this guy, run a campaign that they fear is going to lose to Trump because he's just not doing well in the poll. Regardless, even taking that into consideration, it is still too early. We don't know what might happen because the convention has not happened. Usually when the convention happens, the president or the other candidate gets a bump in the polls, usually. Now, this year, because of the situation in Gaza, there were talks of holding the Democratic convention online. So, because they're afraid that, given the controversies that have happened in our college campuses around the country with the encampments, the pro-Palestine encampments, and the police coming out and forcibly, removing those encampments and arresting students and so forth. There was a lot of concern in the White House that if they hold a convention, that there might be protests inside and outside of the convention. And by the way, there are 20 uncommitted delegates who are going to show up at the convention. So in order to avoid that, there was talk of possibly holding the convention virtually. Now, if that happens, that might actually hurt Biden, because how are you going to get the media attention if there are no cameras, physical cameras, capturing people live on the convention floor, nominating you? So you're going to lose out on all of that free press and all of that attention if they do that. And if they do come out and do a convention, what's going to happen if you have protests? And then what's going to happen if there's no ceasefire in Gaza? In the fall, when students come back to school, you're going to have encampments again. So what I think you need to look out for this fall is whether the White House pressures Israel to finally back a ceasefire. They're making saying this nonsense that it's Hamas's fault. It's not, guys. It's really, Israel's really refusing to accept a ceasefire because Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is concerned that if the war ends, he might that might be the end of his coalition. He might lose the support, political support, and he might have to step down. And he's confronting a scandal, a potential trial where he might end up in jail. So he's trying to prolong this crisis as much as he can to survive politically. If the White House is able to pressure him to accept a ceasefire, that might have a big effect on the presidential campaign. Okay, because what will happen is that you'll kill two birds with one stone. You'll solve that. Well, not solve, but you won't have to deal with that situation in Gaza, which is a lot of people are saying I believe it's a genocide, but it's a humanitarian crisis. So you'll not have to deal with that in November, and you won't have to deal with student protests and protests out in the streets over that situation. And then Lichtman talks about that in his keys. So I think that's what you want to look out for if there's going to be a ceasefire. If there's a ceasefire, most likely Biden will win, even with the gaffes and so forth, because some people might come out and say, I'd rather vote for him than this guy, But however, if there's no ceasefire, then it's very highly likely that President Biden is going to lose the state of Michigan, because people are not, the Arab voters and young voters who are college-age students who are passionate about that issue, they're most likely not going to come out to vote for him, regardless what he does. And you have the other third party, minor party candidates like Cornel West, Jill Stein of the Green Party, and of course Robert Kennedy supports Israel and so forth. But that is also going to have an impact on the election, because they're going to be taking, they think, taking votes away from them. To what extent, we don't know. Okay, but it's definitely going to have an impact if you don't have a ceasefire by the time that the debates happen or before the election. All right. So that's that. So at the moment, the fallout for the assassination attempt, it's definitely going to benefit Biden at the moment, because all the attention now is shifted, and he might
literally in
end
leadership
up getting
who are
nominated
saying this
after all.
literally on background. I mean, that's just stunning. And what they say here is that, quote, congressional Democrats' all-consuming angst over President Biden's candidacy has now taken an abrupt backseat in the midst of the wake of an assassination attempt against former President Trump. Democratic lawmakers say that their immediate focus now is on the personal security and that of their staffs, not on party's political woes, helping to allow a crucial cool-down period for the embattled president. Quote, we're all just expressing condolences, keeping our team safe. A senior House Democrat suggested that the atmosphere in the party is too chaotic for internal battles over leadership. Obviously, they talk about the Biden campaign, having these reach out sessions that happened over the weekend. Biden apparently met with Senator Chuck Schumer to shore up some of his support. You saw also that even that individual who I described, Jason Crow, he appeared on television on Sunday, and he was even asked about some of the eroding support. And he says, look, it's a tough business. There's a lot at stake. Emotions can run high. I think the president heard our message very clearly. And in fact, he promised to come back with more useful information to address our concerns and to answer all of our questions. So look, you can.
So that tells you a lot right there, that the people who were pressuring him now, because of what happened to Trump, they're going to have to stop. And because the focus now we're talking about unity and bringing the country together, and be careful your political rhetoric right now. And we need to stop, basically igniting passions, stop stoking the fire, on that. And people need to calm down. And so you can't do that if you're asking the president to step aside. So at the moment they're going to have to just stop pressuring him, and if this continues from now until right before the convention, Joe Biden will become the official nominee of the Democratic Party, whether they like it or not. He's going to have to run with Kamala Harris. There were rumors that some within the Democratic Party wanted even Biden to step aside now, to resign his office, to allow Kamala Harris to become president, so that then she could run and accept the nomination at the convention and hopefully help her beat Trump in the fall. So there were some people who don't believe that Biden can win, had that plan. And then there were others who were arguing for an open convention. And then that was controversial, and there's a lot of pro and people on both sides, pro and con, debating that. So that's basically it. We'll see what happens today at the Republican convention. They're probably going to be talking up what happened at the Trump rally, and the president. This is going to provide him breathing room for the next couple of days. He doesn't have to do anything. Honestly, President Biden, all he has to do is just be quiet, not hold any meetings with anybody, and just call for unity. That's it. Because the problem with him holding meetings with people or doing events is he's going to trip up, and he's going to remind people of his cognitive state. And so they don't want that to happen. So the White House at the moment can breathe a sigh of relief that their jobs for the moment are secure until the convention, and then we'll see what happens after the convention and how well he does against Trump. Okay, that'll be it, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us. Take care.